Hi, it's Fab Poli here and welcome back to another episode of BizJet TV. Today we're going to answer the question, should I fly single pilot? Now, if you're flying a small Cessna on that, all those airplanes are flown single pilot, but let's look at the more sophisticated airplanes. Let's look at the PC-12, which is single pilot operations. It's a turboprop. You may have seen the video I've done on here on BizJet TV about the PC-12. You've got the PC-24, which is a jet. You've got the older Citation 1SP, which can be flown single pilot. You've got the newer Citations, the CJ1 through 4, which all can be operated single pilot. You've got the new Honda jet, which can be flown single pilot. You've got the Phenom 100 and 300, which can be flown single pilot as well. So you've got a lot of these new jets now that have come onto the market that can be flown by just one pilot. Now, they've looked at aircraft accidents, because that's always the question. Now, let's look at the accidents and let's see if more airplanes crashed because they were operated by one pilot than those operated for two. And interestingly enough, 37% of the accidents were, that were analysed between 1977 and 2014 were actually accidents where there was only one pilot flying. There was only one pilot on board. While the rest of the accidents, the other 63% of crashes, were all crashes where two pilots were operating the aircraft. So if we look at the statistics of accidents, it's actually telling us that single pilot operations is safer than two pilot operation. Well, I'm actually going to contradict that statistic because I always like to play it safe. So this is my take on it. And I've seen, there's a friend of mine, and I did an interview with him a while back on here. You can see it about the Honda jet if you look at that interview. And now this wasn't on the interview, but he was telling me that basically they used to operate a King Air with one pilot. And the pilot, after takeoff, had a heart attack. And the airplane crashed and killed all 10 people on board. Again, statistics are saying that only 37% of the crashes were single pilot, 63% were two pilots. So does that come into it? But let's say if this King Air had been operated by two pilots and one suddenly having a heart attack was feeling sick, at least there's somebody else that can, you know, move the chair back and take over and land the airplane safely and bring everybody down to the ground in a safe manner. My take on it, that if you do get trained up and to fly single pilot, I still think it's always best to have another pilot sitting next to you. Now, that pilot doesn't necessarily have to be rated in the airplane, but he has to be somebody that can read the checklist, knows how to read the checklist, knows how to land the airplane if suddenly something happens to you, knows how to do the radios, so they can take some of the workload off you if suddenly something goes wrong, or even just to help you out. So what you could do is you could take a young guy just out of flight school or a flight instructor that needs to clock up some jet time or some turboprop time, and they can sit in the right hand seat with you and accompany you on the trip. And I mean, this is what happened to me in my early days as a pilot. I worked for two gentlemen that were both rated on the Citation 1SP, and I used to fly with them because they didn't want to fly on their own. They always wanted another pilot. I wasn't very experienced. When I started flying with them, I only had 350 hours. But it was good for me. It was jet time, and I soon boot my hours up with these guys. I did about 200 hours with them before then I went into flying for a number of different charter companies and that. So, you know, you can also give the opportunity to a young person to gain some experience, or maybe take a retired pilot with you, which can teach you some stuff. So I would definitely recommend not flying on your own, even though the level of sophistication and quality of the avionics and that now, it does make it easier to fly on your own, because the airplane does a lot of the things on its own. Now, I do see us moving towards more automation on the flight deck, even on these smaller aircraft. And I do see ourselves moving towards single pilot operations, even with the airlines. But what has to happen is we need to have some form of artificial intelligence in the airplane that acts as the co-pilot, that actually talks to the pilot and monitors the pilot. If the pilot suddenly falls asleep, or if the pilot suddenly doesn't feel well or has to go to the toilet, because that happens too, that the artificial intelligence can take over and fly the airplane. And if the pilot just wants to, you know, press the button, and this is not autopilot, this is the next level of autopilot, you know, that the artificial intelligence can drive this airplane all the way down to a safe landing. Now, a bit like we see in the sci-fi movies where, you know, think of, you know, even Star Wars with Luke Skywalker and R2-D2 acting as his co-pilot. I think we are moving towards that. But right now, if we look at the aircraft that are on the market, I would certainly say, in particular, you're flying for business and that, always have another pilot with you. It's safe. It's always another pair of ears and eyes that can help you out. As I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be rated. If the person is rated, even better. But if you are flying commercially, then you should really have two pilots, because, you know, you've got paying passengers in the back. And even if you are a company and you're flying your executives, you want two pilots up front to keep your people safe. Even though the statistics are saying the opposite, you want 2 pilots on board because, as I said, worst case scenario, one guy's sick, the other guy can take over. So that's my take on single pilot operations. I know some of you are going to hit on me now and say, I've been flying single pilot all my life, never had a problem. But yes, I mean, by all means, it's down to an individual. I'm just expressing my opinion, giving my advice here for whatever you want to value my advice. So that's all from me on the single pilot operations. So just, if you haven't done so, subscribe to this channel, like this video, share, comment below. If you want to contact me, my email's below. We can schedule you in for a conversation and see where you want to go and give you some advice on your aircraft purchase. That's all from Fab Poli at BizJet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.